Evening is 2100 game time, Sunday 8th of September, 3305, and this is the Prismatic Congress. Welcome to our listeners. And it's been another exciting week for the Prismatic Imperium. But first, what have we been doing in game? Techie? What have you been doing in game this week?
You mean me personally, or me as the brush?
You personally.
I've personally read a lot of Galnet articles, especially the one of the thief, who's returned recently, and was also active last year.
Yeah. This is the thief who's stealing priceless artifacts.
Exactly, that one.
Yeah. Anything that you've done to increase your awesome wealth?
Well, my wealth is as awesome as always. You don't have to worry.
Missler? What have
Yep.
you been doing? What have you been doing this week in the game?
Bits and pieces, pretty much everything. Keeping our BGS in check, running missions here and there. The usual, pretty much.
I'm still. I think my update's going to be the same for like the next year, which is slowly making my way back to the bubble. Although in the last couple of days, yesterday, I found an Earth-like world, and also today, actually when I was making the notes for the show, I was exploring a little bit as I was heading back. I try to get in a little bit every day, so at least I'm still making some progress. But I'm still in the Acheron sector, which is the sector right next to the Abyss, which is where Beagle's Point is. So I'm still pretty far out, and I'm taking my time. I'm in no rush to get back to the. So, in-game news, and for that, we'll take it over to our branch leaders. First up, Lord Warden Missler, what do you have for us this week?
Well, thank you. So we have greetings to everyone in the Prismatic Imperium, as well as to you for extending the show, which is now for the whole of the Prismatic Imperium. And yep, this is me speaking for the branch of Vigor, Lord Warden Missler. And I presume everyone has noticed the changes in staff by now. I have been replacing our esteemed former Lord Warden Trinity A. Craft, who has resigned from the position. And alongside me, I now have the support of my new Vice Warden, Honest Benjamin, who will help me particularly as the caretaker for the Adamantine Union Task Force as part of our branch. And we are still settling into our new offices and our new responsibilities. So we do not have any important or special announcements to make. But there are still a couple of points that I can talk about. Well, first of all, this new staffing gives us an opportunity to revisit points about how we run the branch, where we want to direct the BGS to, how we want to set up our mission board and things like that. So it is quite possible that there will be updates to this in the future, but still something we talk about. One thing I can already mention is that you can probably expect an upcoming change in the exploration data reward rate. Now, this reward has not really been touched or changed in a pretty long time, and I'm pretty happy to see that by now our friends over in the branch of Sight have a very, very great mission board that makes exploration rewarding and worthwhile. And the thing is, the vigor part, the exploration data reward rate, is still based in the time before that. And I do believe that we are a little bit on the unbalanced OP side with the vigor rewards. So you can expect some kind of nerf there to bring it more in line. By now, I see that the branch of Sight does a great job at rewarding the scans and everything the people do out there in the frontier and exploring stuff. So I want to turn down the exploration reward rate and make this more about the targets and where the card data has to go to. Another point I can mention is you may have noticed that the Ruby Citadel channel is back in the list of roleplay channels. One of my minor goals is to reestablish that Ruby Citadel channel as an opportunity for vigor roleplay, both for the Vigor staff, meaning me and my vice warden, but also for anyone who's interested in role playing with people from the branch of Vigor. So keep your eyes on that roleplay channel. There may be more going on, and feel free to use it if you want to roleplay with us. A last point I want to mention is events. Now, I consider Vigor already a branch that is pretty much about in-game activity, and still I want to encourage gatherings, people flying together, winging up outside of our standard mission board. There are things like running missions that you cannot even really do well in a wing. So one thing I have my eyes on is getting into a at least semi-regular schedule of running occasional events that reward winging up and doing things together and add an additional motivational factor to the branch of Vigor and what we do in game. And yeah, with that, I want to end the news from the branch of Vigor. Thanks to everyone supporting our branch. And if you have any further questions or feedback, you can, of course, always contact me. And then allow me to hand over to our dear Lord Headmaster, who is speaking for the branch of Sight.
Thank you, my dear colleague. Well, greetings, citizens. I am Lord Headmaster Tegeron, leader of the branch of Sight, directly speaking from the Emerald Observatory to you. For this week, I have the following announcements to make. As you all know, we are still pretty excited about the fleet carrier. While I've already explained the details last week, there have already been some interesting suggestions for possible names. I am going to write down a list of all names that get at least 10,000 votes by the students of our university and will create a poll to vote for you in the coming month. As you already also know, we are going to do an annual exploration trip. The target is still not completely marked yet, but I feel like it's going to be necessary for our new people that the target is less than 10,000 light years away, as mentioned last week. I'm also going to create a poll in the coming weeks that is going to focus on the destination as well as the goals and the targets that are on the way to the destination. So you're not only able to choose where you want to go, but also what you want to do during the breaks on the way to our goal. Well, and there's also an announcement I'd like to make that fills my heart with joy. Recently, I've gotten an interesting request by one of our own who's currently listening to our show. Senator Einak wants to become one of us, a side member. I can't wait to put him through all of the necessary requirements and roleplay stuff so he can become a proper side member. I'm sure he's going to make it through all that interesting and difficult missions I have to give him. Joke. It's easy, believe me. But well, my vice headmaster and me are looking forward to work with you in the future, if you can survive the following days. Well, this has been everything from my part. Thank you for your attention. This concludes everything from the branch of Sight for this week. In the name of the branch, I hereby thank you for your continued support for our explorers and researchers. Long live the Empire and the House Rhine.
Thank you for that, Lord Headmaster. I'd like to come back to some points that you both made. More just commentary. New leadership, welcome. I'd just like to welcome the new leaders to the High Council as well. It's not an easy position. We do this for fun, but sometimes it can still be a hard job, leading a branch or being involved in the leadership. It can be fun, it can be rewarding, but it's also, and I think this is the first time since the very early days that we've had both positions replaced at once. So welcome, Whistler and Benji, who's listening now. Also, like to say about the boards, it's funny actually. I was thinking personally. This is my own personal opinion. It doesn't reflect the official position of site, and I'm sure the Lord Headmaster will like to smack me around the head for this. But I was thinking that we could try and simplify. I know when I look at the rewards that it's a complex process to reward people for their fun. And it's good because these are things that we want done. These are things that we're encouraging people to do. But from our end, this is stuff that we have to then manually calculate and look at. So I was thinking we could try and simplify site in some way. One way I was thinking about is using directly the exploration data and reward that directly, because it takes into consideration a lot of things that people have found or scanned, or rather than going through everything individually, if we can just get a snapshot of what they're selling or from a third party source, what they've got coming in, then we can reward that directly. Be a simpler thing. But yeah, I agree that you should probably look at rebalancing. Events, that's always a good thing. It's one of the things that we've been discussing a lot in the High Council, and also in private discussions with our members, is encouraging people to play and play together. It's one of the, I think it's been one of our mistakes as a group over the last 4 years, is that we've tried like a top-down approach, which is we try to encourage people to do things in a certain way, and use the Discord and use the missions, and that's all wonderful. But I think that a simpler way of encouraging people is to play with them. It sounds like a really obvious thing now that you say it, but say it out loud. But it's something that we did it in the very early days. But again, it's kind of been a more formal approach, which is things like, we've got this event scheduled for this day. Please show up. A few people show up. But a much easier way is just when we're in game. If you see a member of the PI, the Prismatic Imperium, you say, hey, do you want to hang out? Do you want to join my wing? Do you want to sit in my ship? And that's a fun way of making friends and creating bonds and keeping the PI together. And I think that's a style that we should encourage. I mean, not necessarily through diamonds or gameplay rewards, but just encourage people also by example. I think the Lord Chancellor is very good at that. That's been his solution for a long time, and it works. He gets out there in a ship and shoots stuff with people, or does other things. He goes mining, and I think that's something that.
Yep, I totally agree with that. He does an admirable job.
So, that's something that events and things like that I heartily encourage. It's important that we play together. Techie votes for ships 10,000. Would you like to comment?
Well,
we
you
going
know.
For Shippy McShippy face? Is that what we're going
Oh,
for?
no. Definitely not. If I see any such suggestions from my students, I'm going to kick them from the university. Only proper names will be accepted, of course. But there's one that's already quite popular.
Which is?
The PRS, Prismatic Research Vessel Emerald's Orb.
Emerald Frog.
Biocular? What? I said Emerald's Orb. Well, since you're my vice headmaster, what do you think about that name?
I think it's a wonderful name.
Yeah. If it keeps the first place on the poll, it's definitely going to be the one. And if not, well, we have the power to make it the first place.
Yeah, but we do need an Alexander Ryan. That's And I can't do it. I can't buy a carrier and call it the Alexander Ryan. I need somebody else to do it. Maybe I'll try and twist Techie's arm into doing it. Who just left?
Well, you
Music
know,
bot.
I've already said that I'm going to buy the fleet carrier for the entire branch.
Yeah, no, but we need more. We need more. So.
Oh, of course we need more.
More than one.
Yes.
One per branch.
Site membership again. That's always I like to see. I like to see the branch expanding, new members coming in. We have our professors. I enjoyed being a professor, but site members is always welcome, and people for Techie to boss around other than me is always, is always
I'm not that bad.
is always a good thing. Exploration mission. The exploration mission, I think, is one of those things that'd be nice, like for the Outriders to do. Because it's most people who are members of site should already be people who are accomplished in exploration and going out there, and it's one of the things that kind of pulls people in towards the branch of site, and which is science and exploration. So most site members would already be seasoned explorers or on the way to becoming seasoned explorers. So it would appeal to site members who want to go and see a specific thing. So if you make a mission to place X, then site members would maybe want to go and do that. But it should also be something that we try to pull in people who are not necessarily in the branch of site, members of the Prismatic Imperium, who would like a guided experience towards it.
You mean a guided experience into a black hole?
Yeah. It depends on who's coming along, doesn't it?
Well, just bring the Vector and you will never hear from him again. I'll show him some black holes.
From the branch. No, we've not had input from a black hole. We've had input from Sight and from Vigor. Mind, we're waiting on the program being approved. Obviously, this is a media program, and it still has not been greenlit yet by the Lord Herald. So we're waiting to see if he approves of the
As
transmission.
soon as it is, you can expect much more lies in here.
Vector session, please.
Yeah. So it's as soon as it's approved by the Lord Herald, then he shall maybe give us input as to what's happening on a mind front. I would like to see input from what's happening roleplay wise. I think it would be a nice way to update people. Again, similar to what you guys were talking about with like the new members and things. If we can let people know what's happening in our roleplay in an easy to understand way, so that if something exciting is happening, then is happening. If something exciting is happening, then they can the Lord Herald can tell us about it in the weekly broadcast, or things that have happened. So if something exciting has happened in his recent story, he can tell us, and maybe that would get more people involved, or even just more people reading.
You mean something exciting like canceling the Vector from the show program?
Oh,
I'm a
like
big
that
fan. I'm a big fan of the Vector.
Yeah, me as well. It's a funny guy.
No, not at all.
The
Yeah, he
Vector's
is.
the only
It's
real
the-
honest news source out there, I think. And I think that if we get rid of it, we'd really be crippling ourselves.
I have to
Yeah,
agree
yeah,
with you on this,
Mr.
Benjamin.
Anti-slavery.
It's like
We are all anti-slavery here, except you.
I'm a traditionalist.
So am I. I'm also a
You're a
traditionalist.
murderer is what you are.
No,
The Duke is a traditionalist. I, as his brother, I'm also a traditionalist. But that being a traditionalist doesn't mean that there are some things we're willing to look at again. We still believe in the Empire. We believe in a a hierarchical institution. We just do not believe that imperial slavery needs to be a part of that hierarchical institution. So you can still be a traditionalist and still be a progressive traditionalist. That's how I would describe myself and my brother.
How about we come back to the important topics?
I was about to say, look at this discussion going all political and no single mind member here.
Just so you know, everyone in here, this is going to be recorded.
I know it's recorded. I was getting my position out there.
We have a bot in the channel who has in big caps lock letters recording in it, so I think that should be obvious.
Yep. So, yeah, but Techie, this is a body that was founded as standing against slavery. So you will not find many people in here who are sympathetic to your views.
I'm the only one, but
Imperial
thankfully I'm
slavery.
just responsible for science.
Yes, we know.
You killed my brothers.
I do my politics at home. Dark.
You killed my family. You
Of
and every
course.
other slave or traditionalist are responsible. I'm holding each and every one of you responsible for it.
Well,
One
that's
day
not
I'm
very
going to have
intelligent.
my revenge.
Honest
If
Benjamin.
you do that, I'm going to call the authorities.
I am the authorities.
It is
No,
true.
you're not.
He is now. So his name is Sir Honest Benjamin. You killed his father. Prepare to die.
Eduardo Montoya.
Well, you can't prove.
Wow.
Right, so I guess that means we're going to open it up to the discussion part of the show now. It's a little bit earlier than I thought it would be.
I thought that would already be the discussion part.
Well, it's kind of like
I just wanted to be like a crazy radical for a minute. I'll be quiet now if you guys need to like get talking about important stuff.
oh no, you're more than welcome to join in. That's fine. And the more crazy radicals, the better.
Throw him out. Throw him out. Now throw him out.
So for the exploring trip, like for the side branch and everything, I was thinking of I've been traveling a lot like the last week and this one it comes to my mind like I'm not using the map like in 3D. I'm using just like in 2D because even if the galaxy goes up and down, I you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
so I thought it could be a good idea to instead going to the sites, going up or down and find a nebula or going to the edge of the galaxy or something like that.
Yeah, that was actually my very first exploration journey, like way back when the game first opened up into Gamma. Was I took a Cobra Mark III and headed as far down as I could because I knew everybody was trying to head to the edge or to head to the core because this was before Sagittarius A had been explored, and I just because I always try to think different things to do, I just headed down. And that was interesting. It's also it's a different way. It's a different skill in using the map in that way, and also it's a shorter trip as well. That's what's nice about it. It's not you're still going to a confine. You're still going to a boundary, but it's not as far. But it is a different kind of trip if you're going up or down. But yeah, I think some people have also looked at trying to get to some stars that are as far up as possible, and it does give you a different view of the galaxy.
This is exactly what I'd like to use our fleet carrier for, because there are not only some systems that have never been explored, but also nebula out there.
I've discovered at least like 10 Earth-like worlds under 1,000 light years outside of the bubble, because that's just what I did. I went to like a guardian planet. I just went straight down. No one has ever been out there.
It's nobody's been nowhere actually. It's like you just go like 1,000 years out from the bubble and you are discovering all the time new stuff. Like in my first proper travel, I made like over 5,000 discoveries.
That's pretty normal.
That's the
It's-
reason, because you are nerfing the reward board. It's like-
I'm waiting for somebody to like go out on here and see one of the planets I discovered and be like, "Hey, you discovered this," and I'll be like, "That's right, I did."
I have
Oh, that's
like,
an anti-slavery planet. Go away.
Well, I was thinking what we could also do is when we do get fleet carriers, the branch of sight could employ some former freed slaves and
yes.
have them and just get a nice fleet of them to go around exploring planets. Because again, there's lots of undiscovered planets there, and that would be a
No.
good way to use these freed slaves. A lot of them have college education.
That was
Unfortunately, they're just forced into slavery by social circumstances. But maybe we can make things right.
that
I
was
do
kind of
like-
what we did with Colonia. With both Wibith.
Yeah, but
And-
the guy out
and
there now
Colonia.
is trying to spread slavery there.
Who's spreading slavery?
The
I think
what's his
that
name?
there is a problem.
Gene? No.
yeah, he is.
No, he isn't.
He posted it. He posted it on like the Senate thing, didn't he?
No, he posted something which was like I read it.
Oh
it
yeah,
was
yeah.
not.
Slavery isn't that bad. That's what he's
Yeah.
saying. Is that we shouldn't be focusing
No.
on freeing it. 'cause
No,
it's
that's
that's what he's
not
implying there.
that's not what he said. What he said was
You're just
Um,
believing his propaganda now.
You can't be in a room with that guy for 15 minutes without hearing the word slavery, slavery, slavery.
we're an anti. That's like our whole reason for existence.
Well, that's one of the reasons. Like Aisling come with to be different from the other
Yes.
people fighting for the power.
Yeah,
but that's it.
my story is different. I was invited to come here. I did not join because of political reasons.
I didn't invite. Wait, let's ask him a second. Who invited you to the Prismatic Imperium?
Trinity did.
Well, no.
No.
It was
Oh wait, me or
It's a trap.
okay.
Who was it?
Kevin with
See,
Marcus.
There you go. That's why he's here. Kevin invited him to so.
I was invited to originally save you from an assassination by Jesse Led.
Me, I was being assassinated.
Yeah,
I was being assassinated.
but I came too
Damn.
late. I came too late. That
You
was
came too late.
4
and
years.
I,
4 years.
You came too late, and then he was.
Wait,
assassinated.
Yeah, I came
Now
too
he's
late, but
dead.
you still survived.
He's now dead.
Nah, that was 4 years ago.
Well, I mean, he got better.
I was assassinated and nobody told me.
I know. I hate it when that happens.
But to come back to the idea of freed slave explorers,
Yes.
for what it's worth, the adamantine explorers have a nice touch to the sound of it.
We originally worked with it was an initiative called Twin Candles, which was about helping free slaves in Wibith to start up their own colonies and things. And that was before the Aurora colony set up. So, but it's something that we've looked at in the past. The problem that we have a lot is trying to get our objectives to work within the game mechanics, and that has been a nightmare for us in the past. Some of it has improved, some of it we had to fix ourselves, which is the whole reason that the Adamantine Union exists, because we had to basically we had the CG, which was Liberate the Slaves, which was in Wibith, which was like a random system that the Frontier Development set up in accord, because we'd applied for a CG, and I think basically they tweaked an existing CG and told us that we could have it to keep us happy.
How nice of them.
Yes, it was. So we were in Wibith, and that was fine, and the CG was a wonderful success because it was a CG where everybody could sell slaves and made a lot of money, and those slaves were then freed.
Wait.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, they were free. Okay, good. Go. You can continue.
Thank you. So the slaves were then freed when they were received at Wibith. But shortly after the CG closed and the Prismatic Imperium withdrew from the system, we got word that the slave markets had reopened in Wibith. So we sent the Adamantine Union Task Force to close down the slave markets and take over the system. But that happened because after the CG closed, FDev closed down their boom market and the old market took place again. I mean, we had to find a solution ourselves because it was a huge embarrassment for us because the CG had been wonderfully successful and very popular. Then, like 2 weeks later, people go into the system and find that there's slaves on sale. That was something we had to fix it in game because it reflected on us. And we couldn't think of a way to do it. And eventually we hit upon the solution of setting up a secondary BGS, which gave us a place to send Untamed Zero to learn about how BGS worked. So one thing that we've had a problem with from the beginning is trying to find ways to express ourselves in game mechanics. And that's not always an easy thing. I mean, even if we had, I thought a nice thing actually would be if QBO could buy slaves, because what that would mean would be that this it's reflected in the game mechanics as we are a purchaser of slaves, but that would be that those slaves that are purchased by the Prismatic Imperium are then freed, and that would be a nice thing.
What I would love is just to have somebody in the contact screen, like in an emancipation station or something like that. Where
that would also be cool.
That's something that has been discussed since the days of the DDF, which was the design group that I was a part of, and it was definitely from the very earliest days of the game. It's something that's been discussed. Originally, there was absolutely no in-game mechanics to free slaves at all. Now you can just abandon the cargo, no, there is a thing in game now, isn't there? There's a contact for it's like the if you pick up
the search and rescue contact.
Yeah, search and rescue contact.
Really?
Yeah. I haven't used it that much, so I couldn't tell you the specifics of it.
I don't think it works for slaves.
Yeah, they might. Right, that's what it was. It was in the past, if you picked up people, they automatically became slaves. Like if you did search and rescue and you picked up people, they became slaves in your hold, and then there was no way.
Yeah,
there was no way to free them.
Can I ask something?
Because
this has a lot to do with my background story. My character is born a federal. Then when something happens, his family dead, he was sent to the pilot academy, and in his first trade mission, he goes to an station, Imperial station. That station got attacked by Thargoids. And his ship is destroyed and everything, no? And one ship comes and rescue the people, but that people they are slavers. Okay, so in my head, my character is like he's a slave now, and he is freed by the people of the Prismatic Imperium. Could that work or something like that?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, that could work. But it means the only problem with that is it means it's not a problem. Is that your time as a slave was actually quite short because the Thargoids only returned a few years ago, and they've only been attacking a year.
It's just for a time. It's like
yeah. That's fine. I mean that's kind of what we do.
So my doubt is like with the citizenship and because you need to get an empire to be an empire citizen, you need to like a patron.
Yeah, we've actually got a few ex-federals in the Prismatic Imperium, including Kevin, the Lord Herald is a federal, is a Federation citizen originally. Also, the previous Lord Warden, Trinity Craft, she was federal. There are probably some more that I don't know about.
I think that
I think Curtis too.
Kurt, yeah, there's a few feds
I think
kicking
even
around.
like the NPCs. I think wasn't Forculus federal at one point?
I think Forculus was federal. Yeah, because I think that's where Kevin's from, and I'm pretty sure it's a federal system.
So,
Right.
I have a question about the patronage. Like, what do you need to be a patron and have a slave, or promote a slave to citizen?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a
Because-
good lore question. I imagine basically you need to be able to offer, and this is how the whole imperial system works, is you have to have something that your patron is interested in. So if you have a skill or you have some knowledge that I would be interested in, then I would be your patron. Not me personally, but that's how it would work. Is somebody that you have met, and that could be at any rank, not necessarily the high ranks like the Duke and the headmasters or whatever, but somebody who is a higher rank than yourself sees that you have something of value, whether it's a skill or it's your ability, or they just like you, or you've got some information. You might be able to get them because patrons need followers, and that's the whole empire works like that. You follow this guy, that guy follows that guy because he's got these people that he can bring, and then that guy follows that guy, and that goes all the way up to the Senate and finally to the emperor. Our whole system is based on patronage. So
that's all because I was thinking like a plausible form to introduce my character in the Empire and then in the Prismatic Imperium, because my chosen ship is like a courier, and I need to be an imperial citizen to have a courier.
one thing I'll tell you though. You're a senator in the Prismatic Imperium, so
Yeah.
somebody important has taken you under their wing for whatever reason.
Yeah,
That's something that can also be an NPC because Cubio is a lot bigger than players.
You should have Marcus be your patron.
Oh, please no, God
Whoa.
no.
Marcus is the best NPC. Have him be your patron, really.
I think Benji's trying to trick you.
I'd honestly love it if I could just interact with Marcus more.
I
In fact,
really
you can
like
get rid of
Marcus.
everyone
It's
else.
like
Keep Marcus. Sorry,
I
go
love
on.
Marcus, but I don't think I'd like him to be my patron.
yeah, that probably will be true. That it's like it's like or very stupid, or it's like a stupid savant or something like that.
A stupid savant. I think you've understood Marcus very well and described him very well.
like, but yeah, I really like that guy. I didn't met a lot of the NPCs, but for the
Yes.
moment is the only one I like, because the Alicia is like, I don't like her, and the Alochurus is like, no.
Yeah, it's the role play is a complex thing. Right. Anyway, one of the things I wanted to discuss a little bit today is we've actually managed to use about 20 minutes of the show, just chit chat, which is cool. Is Yamix? He published on Reddit this week, and it's one of the things that I was looking at for game news. Is this has been a quiet week in the world of Elite Dangerous. Not a lot has happened, unless something has happened like the last hour that I don't know about. But Yamix put together 100 questions for the developers. Obviously, we do not have time to go through the 100 questions, but I'll give you an example of some of them. These are not ones that we're going to look to answer. But some of them are a little less serious than others. Why is Holler named the Holler? Which is the most and least used ship, not counting the Cobra Mark IV, because it's an exclusive? And what is the most common cause of death in Elite Dangerous, which I imagine would be your ship blowing up? So, other than that, but there were some interesting questions, specifically some of the things to the lore. Now, a lot of the questions were to do with weapon balance and game-specific things, like why is there a limit on this, or why is there a limit on that. One of the more interesting ones that was answered, which is something I would have liked to have seen, which is why is Anaconda the only ship that changes when damaged? I'm not sure if you've noticed this, but the Anaconda, when it gets blown up a bit, you can see it. You can see it in the ship, whereas that doesn't happen with any other ship in the game. And the reason for that is very simple. It's just want to work. It would require. I mean, it requires, like for the Anaconda, you need to model it when it's whole. You have to then have a model in place for each of the ship skins. You have to model it again when it's damaged, and then remodel it again for all the ship skins. And then when it's even more damaged, I think there's like 4 models at various damage stages. So it basically just comes down to they just do not have the time to apply that. The Anaconda was a test case, which is why it was done. It was done very early on in the game's development. But to go back and do all that again for the other ships would just require too much time. It'd be very nice if they did it, but it's just not going to happen. Now, a lot of the questions were technical questions. Some of these things are things that I know about, which is things like why defense rates drop drastically the more players join one instance, and that's basically just due to the network that we have, because it's not like we're all speaking to a central server. It's like my computer is speaking to Techie's computer, so we have to set up a back and forward connection. And then if we include Missler in that, then we have to, instead of 1 connection, we then have 3, because it's 1 between me and Techie, and then 1 between Techie and Missler, 1 between Missler. So 3. And if you add 4, then it starts to increase exponentially beyond that. So the number of connections in place goes up, and that slows down.
Problem.
Yeah. And that slows down the game. So frame rates start to drop. It doesn't so much frame rate drop as you start to get rubber banding, and that causes it's nothing to do with the ability of the game to work on your computer. It's to do with trying to handle back and forward players, and it's a network issue more than it is anything else. Lore and narrative, which is kind of the things I'm interested in. Which parts of previous game lore are retconned, and what's still lore for me? And the answer to that question is basically whatever Elite Dangerous, whatever Frontier developments decide. I think the running rule is that if it's appeared in Elite Dangerous lore, then it's lore. If it's not appeared in Elite Dangerous lore, it can be inferred, then maybe. And if it hasn't been in Elite Dangerous, then there's no way to tell if it's lore or not. So that's one of the things. There's a lot of questions about Raxla, which is I don't think that they will ever answer this. From what I know about Raxla, one of the questions is the thing in the current build of the game? And the answer to that is yes. Raxla has been in the game since launch. There's been a rumor that it's found. I've come across this rumor. I've also come across people saying that that's not true. Like somebody found it, but then they didn't realize that they'd found it. So they visited the system that it was in and jumped and left. Apparently, that's like an urban legend. I've not heard or seen any other confirmation of that other than heard developers have said, but I've never seen that confirmed.
Is this sorry, I was kind of
sure.
for a minute. Is this you're talking about Rexala now, right? Or whatever it's called?
Yeah, Raxla.
Right, Rexalsa.
Yeah. Raxalsa. Yes, Raxalsa.
Oh yeah, I know where that is.
Excellent.
That's where I keep all my stuff.
How did humanity find out about it? Humanity.
I'm not telling you guys how I found out about it. You'll go there and take my stuff.
Is through rumors and stories. It's basically Raxla is basically a legend, but it's a legend that we know is true. One of the things that I get a little bit annoyed about are questions like these, which is why aren't there handmade story quests and missions? Like, why is the game more procedural generation? And the answer to that, quite simply, is that there's also some questions about politics and the economy. This kind of ties into that as well, which is why is the economy not player driven? Well, the economy is player driven, but it's just that it's not driven in the way that, for example, Eve's economy is, where if you buy ammunition in Eve, a player has made that, another player has shipped it, other players have mined the minerals for it. And it's not like that in Elite Dangerous, and the missions are procedural because it's meant to simulate a galaxy in which you are basically just one small fish, and it's about that. I've seen Elite Dangerous described as a Han Solo simulator, and that's what it is. It was never meant to be an Empire simulator or Empire strategy game, or a game that you could experience for levels the way Eve is. Eve is a game that you can experience and play on different levels. Some big players in Eve don't even log into the game. They do everything outside of the game, the metagame side of it, and that's a whole different thing. Whereas Elite Dangerous is based on Elite, Frontier, and Frontier First Encounters, which are all player game, a single player experience of being one small guy in the galaxy, and it's always meant to have been that way. Maybe that will change as the game develops forward, but it's always meant to simulate you're just one guy in the giant cosmos. In this, even the human bubble which is very small, is actually still huge. I mean, if you consider that Corwin, in our system, there's what is it, 10 billion people in Cubio. So I mean, our system has more people in it than our current planet Earth does. It's a big place. Cubio is a big place. There's a giant solar system, and that's part of a giant power which has billions and billions of people in it, and that's part of a superpower, which is the Empire, which is billions and billions, if not trillions, of people in it. And you're just one guy in that, and that's the way the game is always meant to have been. So handcrafted missions was never really a part of the experience. It's we talk a lot about emergent gameplay, and that's what we're going for. Tools that we have to tell our own story, and the game gives us the tools to do that. But they're our stories, and they're our little stories, and thousands of other people have their own story, a bit like life itself. So that's kind of like how I see procedural generation, and we don't have a player run economy like in Eve. We're not the superpowers. We can be important parts of a power or whatever. It may even be that on one of us, like, the whole universe can pivot for a moment, like with Pilot, who made first contact with the Thargoids. But generally, it's you're just one little guy in a very big universe.
You just have to go to a combat zone to see all the engineer ships, and you are with, I don't know, and a stock ship, and you get wrecked in the first shot. So yeah, you are a small guy.
Even the BGS, even the player ones, it's still like, it reminds me a lot of Dwarf Fortress. Like, you can kind of give people ideas about what you want to do, but you can't really control your player faction.
Yeah,
It's more like guiding it.
yeah, that's
From
kind of
itself.
like yeah, that's kind of like the way the BGA is it's a river, and you're trying to direct the flow as it goes. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't.
By the way, these questions you're referring to, do you have a link to them that I can also add it to some kind of show notes later on then?
Yes, hold on. Sorry, some dead air there as I
And another thing I want to come back to is the peer-to-peer networking system.
Yes.
An interesting thought there I've heard. I think it was on Down to Earth Astronomy. So shout out to that channel. A good thought is that I mean, there's obviously a big update in the works for the next year, end of next year, and people are still speculating what it is. We have no idea, but there's actually a good point to make if it is about space legs, because if space legs really goes as deep as that, you can run around on a station with other people and interact there, that would also be an indicator that it could be worth to rewrite the networking part of the game to be more server based. So if they actually consider this and maybe a server system for SpaceX, that could also mean that maybe if they introduce servers that we will have larger wings, all kinds of stuff like this would be possible if the game switches to more server based logic instead of peer to peer. So that's something where you could get hopes up. I don't want to promise too much though.
Sorry, Ben.
I was going to say, and I'm just kind of curious if I'm the only one who thinks this. I kind of don't want space legs because I personally feel like it takes a little bit away from the immersion, and that I really want to be flying a spaceship. If I'm walking around my spaceship, I'm probably going to be walking around where my game room is. You know, it's like my computer is the cockpit there. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm the only one who feels like that at all or not.
And I think I understand what you mean. It's true.
Tech
and
is making
it would also
farting noises up there, so I think you might disagree. But
no, I think it would also be if it's mainly limited, like SpaceX only means you can walk around on your ship or so. I think it could quickly happen that this content gets outdated and, well, yes, okay, this is my ship, it's fun, but back to the game as I used to play it.
Yeah, no, personally, I am looking forward to it. I mean, it's one of the reasons that Star Citizen, I hate to bring that game in here, but it's one of the reasons that so many people were sold on it is a lot of people, including myself, are looking for a more complete experience in a game. We're looking for a game where, yes,
too bad it'll never be finished.
Yeah, we're looking for a game where we can run around, we can go, can meet other players. I mean, some other games flirt with this. Eve flirted with it with Incarna, and they were shut down by people who had your opinion. And some other games like Star Trek Online. I mean, for me, one of the things I liked the most about it was the running around stuff. I liked that a lot more than just the ship stuff. I like the mix of things. You know that I played Star Trek Online for very long, but one of my favorite things was inviting people to my ship and hanging out and that kind of. I like that social thing, and it's this might be a controversial topic, and I'm going to get into trouble from somebody, but it's one of the things that would attract a more balanced set of players to the game. Also in terms of sex, which is that, I mean, Elite Dangerous are by no means only men, but is very male dominated. And some people think that if we had also avatars and things, that would be a way to make the game more accessible to everybody. So I personally am looking forward to it. I've always wanted it. I mean, even since I played Elite back in the 80s, I wanted to get outside my Cobra Mark III and walk around the station.
And even then, too, it's not something that I'm kind of hating on. I mean, I'm
Some
honestly
people do.
I'm looking forward to it, but I'm fine without it. It's like, that is kind of how I see Elite now. If they add that into it, it might change. I mean, how I look at it a little bit, but I mean, really, I'm gonna do what I want to do.
I kind of want to do it.
I might do it, but it just depends.
Yeah, I kind of want to do it more like an exploit. I mean, put together with like atmospheric landings. I mean, I would love to fly into an Earth-like world, get out of my ship, come out my buggy, drive for a bit, and then come out my buggy, see some animals, and scan them and think. A little bit like No Man's Sky, but done Elite Dangerous style. That would be a lot better.
It's something that also depends a lot on perspective and how you used to play the game. I'm also with Benjamin there a little bit that I'm not too excited about Space Legs as just the Space Legs feature, because I've got really used to playing the game in VR now, and I think Elite is a perfect game for VR because you just sit in your chair like you just do it for real, and look around in this virtual reality. And Space Legs would kind of be, I'm not going to say destructive, but it would be weird if I'm suddenly able to move. And this is a point that makes me more. I think I'm more hyped about atmospheric landings if I were to choose between the two. It really depends on perspective and what the
I kind
implementation would
of
be.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think that atmospheric landings is something I'm more looking forward to. But I think for me, gameplay. I mean, we have no idea what's coming. One of the things that somebody
Absolutely true. Yeah.
said is that like what's coming this time is a more complete experience instead of like giving us lots of different features over the space of 2 years, the way they did with Horizons. They're going to be giving us 2 years worth of updates in one update, but it's going to be a more integrated experience. So I think like maybe something like Space Legs is maybe we're thinking too small about what's coming rather than too big. So there may be a more integrated experience with everything here. So it might be that we get atmospheric landings. One thing I was sorry, I distracted myself there, is that if you're going to have atmospheric landings, it's better that Space Legs is already in place so that when you bring in that, you can integrate it better. That's how I distracted myself. So I was thinking about integration. So if you can integrate it better if that system is already in place, rather than if you introduce atmospheric landings and then you have to try and shoehorn this experience into it. So anyway, yeah, one more, and then
I think about the atmospheric landings is like it won't happen, and if they do it, they won't do it correctly because depending of the size of the planet, the composition, and everything, you will have a very different climatologic conditions, and I think is pretty is like you can't land in a planet with 350,000 atmospheres or and a very acidic composition in the atmosphere. It's like I don't know how they will do it because we
well,
are.
I think some things. I mean, like if as long as it's with tolerance, then why not? But obviously, if we're looking at the extremes, then yeah, you can't land on a planet where it's 3,500 degrees, or you can't go into an atmosphere that's too dense. So maybe yeah, maybe no. But procedural generation does mean that it's possible to do. The technology is already it can generate trillions of planets. That is absolutely doable.
Yeah, but what I think is if they implement it, it's like it's not going to be to look right. It's like it's
Why
going to be
not?
like in No Man's Sky where you can land in everywhere, but it's like is everywhere is the same or is not. I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. I mean, we the galaxy we have is procedurally generated, and yes, a lot of it looks the same, but that's because a lot of the galaxy does look the same.
I would prefer just to finish. I would prefer if they implement things in the space like the meteor like meteors are or something different things in the space like asteroid fields and events with the stars things like that like solar storms or I don't know small things
Yeah,
like
it's one of the small things like actually for the last few years where they've introduced biological things on planets and geological planets. That's stuff that I have a problem with, and I think could be done better. They've introduced stellar phenomena. They're going to keep expanding on that. But anyway, it is now 10 o'clock game time. I've been your host, Vice Headmaster Jeff Ryan, and that is our show for this week. I'd like to thank everybody who took part. I'd like to thank the audience members who joined in, and I'd like to thank the Prismatic Imperium for being there to give me something to do. Until next week.